Fantastic. Well, hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. It's really an honor to be able to be invited to speak to other students as a student. It makes me feel really happy that I'm going to be able to communicate with people that are going through what I'm going through, and knowing that I can do anything to help you all is something that makes me really happy. And so today is all about how to make it happen, how to design your design career for success. And I say that when I say that, I mean how to transition specifically from being a student or an emerging designer to being an industry professional. And so let's get started. My particular part of the presentation is split into 5 parts. The first is I'm going to dig into who I am, if you don't already know me, and my design journey in a nutshell. Next, we're going to go through keys to success. And these keys are steps or different, almost like little nuggets of wisdom that I have collected in order to really figure out the path that I am at moving forward. Next, I like to go through industry misconceptions. Something that I love to do when I try to learn something or learn a new skill is understand what I shouldn't do. And so I think this would be really helpful for anybody who had any other outstanding questions about that. And then also experience takeaways. I want to make it fully clear I'm very early in my career, but I think that just sharing these takeaways with you all from the different experiences that I've had would be really helpful. And then obviously afterwards, I'm very excited to open the floor for questions. Make sure to write any questions down and add them in the chat or just ask myself later. So first, who am I? My name is Julia. I always say like Julio, but for girls. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a Bachelor of Fine Arts graphic design major at the Academy of Art University. I'm actually graduating this December, which is super exciting. It's midterms right now, so if I'm jittery, it's because I'm on my 2nd cup of instant coffee. And I am a passionate community leader. I am a co-founder of Students of UXD, which is a student organization for UX design students of all ages. And we have events, we have an Instagram if you want to check that out. And also, I have most recently become the youngest board member at AIGA San Francisco, which is awesome. Speaking of, Mr. Phil Hamlet, shout out, is over here, and he's also a board member at San Francisco, AIGA San Francisco. So thanks for coming. Next is I'm a vulnerable content creator. If you haven't seen my face on LinkedIn or YouTube or Instagram, you might see it sometime soon because of algorithms. But basically, I love being able to document my journey in the hopes of helping people and like you guys that are going through the same thing that I had to go through. So if there's anything that you remember about me, about this presentation, is that I'm your ally. I always like to open any of my interview presentations like this. I'm an ally to my users. I'm an ally to whoever I am serving. So I want you to know that I'm coming from this in a place where I want you to succeed, and I want to make sure that this is going to be something that empowers you to do well and to be the designer that you've always wanted to be. All right, now on to my journey. So my journey thus far started with me going to, again, graphic design at the Academy of Art University. I had one introduction to interaction design class, and I feel like that's what kind of like sparked the joy and like the excitement of product design or UX design. From there, I started to dig deeper into the internet, all of the resources that are there. And it was my quote, like COVID hobby, because that was right about the time when we were in quarantine in California. And that was where I actually met my really great friend, the co-founder of Students of UXD, Vicky. And from there, started to create events. We have over 20 events under our belt, and it's growing, so it's really awesome. And then at this time, I started to really figure out how applying to internships worked, what it meant to apply for an internship. And then with this, I started Design Diaries, which again is the way that I have been documenting my journey online. If you'd like to see me cry a little bit and then also talk to you about what I've learned from my interviews, feel free to check that out. Next is what I like to call the lead up. So the thing that I really felt kick-started my career journey is the AIGA portfolio review in the summer of 2020. I cannot express how much AIGA has helped me find so many different resources, met so many different people that have helped me in my journey. So you guys are in the right space, knowing that you're here, you're taking this time and a Wednesday night to speak and talk to me is amazing already. And then after that portfolio review, I actually posted my takeaways on LinkedIn. And from that, the Wish head of design, Jan Sundar, actually gave me my first internship as a growth design intern last winter for Wish. And then after that, I was at Super Friendly as a UX intern at Arcade. And then during all of this, I was juggling applications for summer internships, and I ended up documenting all of that and figuring out that I got offers from Duolingo, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Decided to take my internship for Oculus this past summer at Facebook. During present day, that's me right now. Like I said, still at the Academy of Art, chugging through like all of you all as a student. I'm currently a UX contractor, so I'm also balancing all of that stuff out. And I am the board member at AIGA SF for social media and communication. So anything that you see from our social media, that's probably me posting. And I was also named the graphic design student to watch in 2021, and also ADP, Amazing Design People, most motivational story of 2021, which is kind of cool. And then finally, for the future, I'm going to be continuing as a full-time employee at Facebook Reality Labs for Oculus, which is super exciting. That's going to happen this coming June of 2022. And also the future has a lot of ambiguity. Us designers love ambiguity, so I just wanted to add that as well. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about keys to success. So these are the different steps that I took to get to my current path. Again, these are more like things that have worked for me, little nuggets of inspiration that I have found throughout my life. So what you need to begin. So I know it's really hard and overwhelming when you're like, okay, I want to get an internship now. And it was very, very overwhelming for me as well. And at the end of the day, here were the three things that I needed to tell myself that I had to focus on working on. The first is a good LinkedIn profile. I know some people that still don't have a LinkedIn profile and expect to get an internship. Times are changing. You need a LinkedIn profile. You have to be able to catch the eye of the recruiter. The odds of you being able to have visible or online visible presence is so much greater now. And the fact that you can message recruiters and message people who work at different companies that you want to work for is huge. So make a LinkedIn profile, add that good profile picture of yourself, and begin to add and populate that, because it's going to be a really, really crucial asset during your career. Another thing too is with LinkedIn, I met my bestest friends, and it's a really great resource for you to meet people. I met my mentors through LinkedIn, so it's just a resource that I feel like you really need to use. The next is a parsed or parsable resume. What I mean by that is that, unfortunately, during all of our job searches or job applications, we have to get through a computer. If you don't already know somebody inside that can, put your resume up on top, you need to make sure that your resume is something that a computer can read and a computer can say yes to when you are applying for a job. If you have more questions about this, feel free to ask me about it later. But essentially, get a good resume. Unfortunately, according to the computer, it doesn't matter how well it's designed, it just needs to be readable. The next is probably too obvious, but sometimes not a lot of people have it. A website. You need a website with work. You need to be able to showcase your work in a way that is representative of you as a designer, but also you as somebody who is wanting to work in that company. So make sure to show off your identity, not just your work in your website. I like to say that it's squirrel attention span proof, because recruiters basically only spend around 2 minutes per website when they go through things. So that is why I like to add that in. Another thing, these are like, this particular page is more of just like soft skills that I felt like I've learned during this process. So you need to be resourceful, especially as somebody who mostly self-taught with product design. You need to do research. There are so many resources online. You don't need to have gone to a UX boot camp in order to learn how to do an app critique, in order to learn how to, do like a portfolio, just like a portfolio scan. That is like not true. You can find so many resources online. These amazing, beautiful people that I have on here. I have Elise, I have Alexa, I have Harrison, all of these people I have grown to know personally because the community is so amazing and so small and also so welcoming. So just remember that these people are also humans too, and that you can always reach out to them, and know too that they have a gold mine of resources and even TikToks for you to go through and learn something more about UX every single day. Another thing is just being self-motivated. I know that it can be hard, especially when you're working from home, when there's rejection, there's this and that. It's really important for you to stay motivated and make sure that you yourself understand that it is going to be a process. It might be a long and hard process, but it's still a process to get you from point A to point B. Another thing that I like to do and have to remind myself constantly is having a pulse check. I call it a pulse check because it's just basically reminding yourself that you have checkpoints to understand whether you are growing as a designer or not. So what I mean by this, for example, is having portfolio reviews that are with people that you trust, people that you feel like are designers that you look up to. With these portfolio reviews specifically, I have a story where my portfolio case study that I ended up using for my interview at Facebook was something that I had been working on like that year. It's the same portfolio, same case study that I presented in the AIGA portfolio review. But that particular case study versus what I actually presented to the Facebook team was quite different in that it was much more in depth. It had so much more different improvements that I had to understand that I had to make through different review sessions that I had with my mentors and with my peers. Something that I also want to say with this is that you don't need to have a portfolio review with some like head of a company. You can have a portfolio review with your teacher, a teacher that you trust, with your friend that you trust, with someone that works at the company that you want to work for that you trust, because I think that it's so important. The main thing that you need to get out of this is that feedback is so important for you to grow. So remember that, don't be afraid. I know it can be intimidating to ask for help or ask for feedback, but that's the only way that you're able to understand from an outside perspective whether or not you yourself is growing. The third, and I know it's quite cliche, but it's something that I really kind of want to tattoo on my forehead, is trust the process. Like any other design project that you have, you need to be able to trust that things are going to work out. When I was applying, it really sucked when I got rejections, when I felt like I was so close to getting to particular jobs or internships until I got rejected, and it sucked. But then it will suck until it doesn't suck. When I say that, it means there's going to be a point where you're going to find an opportunity that matches you. And while it's hard to think about it and hard to just not be pessimistic, it's going to happen, and you need to trust that. All right. Another thing that goes hand in hand with that is just having resilience and a support system. Something that has helped me with trusting the process is making sure that I have people around me that I am able to lean on, especially when I have rejections and it feels like I'm in a tunnel. You have tunnel vision. It's like, oh, I got rejected from this company, meaning all my work sucks and I'm not going to ever get a job, period. And all of those things are lies, thought distortions. And I feel like having those people near you whenever you're getting to understand whether or not you're going to get a job or whatever, you need to be able to have those people to make sure that you are reminded of what's your value other than work. Next is patience and consistency. I can be very impatient sometimes, so this is something that I personally am still working on. But there's this quote that I learned quite recently, which success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. And what that means to me is sometimes opportunities or you just don't get a job for whatever reason, and that doesn't mean that you are bad. Sometimes it just matches another person. And I remember specifically looking at Facebook internships during the same summer and realizing that I missed the deadline. And I was like, oh, I didn't get this opportunity, but it's not because I'm a bad designer. It just didn't align with my preparation. And so it's really important to know that, you know, as long as you're constantly preparing yourself, constantly improving on being a better designer, and also just preparing your resume, your portfolio, like I said, your LinkedIn profile, there will be an opportunity that will match you sometime in the future. The final thing is also just kindness and respect. I like to emphasize this, if anything, the most, because I think something that I have loved about being a part of the UX design community is just how patient and kind people have been to each other. I think for the most part, like, we're a very supportive group of people because there are so many other individuals coming from different career paths that are in our world that it is now. And it's rapidly growing, rapidly changing. And I feel like something that we need to remember is just having respect for ourselves and others is so important, because that's how you're going to be able to connect with other people and get those allies around you. Next, we're going to go through industry misconceptions. So these are things that, okay, I personally, this didn't work for me. So if it does work for you, fine. But I want to make sure that you all know that I was able to get my internship without these things. So first is a degree or certificate in UX. Yes, I have, or I'm going to have a degree in graphic design. However, something that I have found when, you know, learning from other people in the industry, I have a friend that was a kinesiology major, master's degree, and he ended up going to product design in Facebook. And I'm just like, okay, it really doesn't matter. What matters is your portfolio. And again, the really foundational things that I talked about today: portfolio, LinkedIn profile, resume, done. The other thing is that I didn't know that I didn't need shipped work in my portfolio. I know that I was really insecure before because I was like, oh, I've never actually worked on real things, or I never worked with a real engineer that could actually ship my work for me. That is a-okay. That's something that I didn't really understand until I got into the interview process. So don't be intimidated just because your stuff isn't real and in the world right now. The whole point of being able to interview for companies is that they expect that you, or they don't expect you to have actual shipped work. Another thing is that job opportunity like boards can be very misleading. You don't need 4+ years of experience for certain like entry-level UX design jobs. I just scratch that and I apply anyway. So just when in doubt, apply anyway, because you never know, your work is going to speak for yourself. Okay, another thing. I get really intimidated whenever I'm stepping into and learning about a new thing. Specifically with UX design, I felt like I had to know everything and everyone all at once, and that intimidated the heck out of me. And I knew that just having that perspective was not healthy. And so just know too that after I've worked with people who have been in the industry for like decades, they still are learning things, and you're all learning things together. So just taking out that weight off of your shoulders is just going to help you have a better experience overall. So make your UX experience getting a job easier by not putting that pressure on yourself. Something that I didn't expect is a cover letter. I never wrote a cover letter for any of the jobs that I applied to. Yeah, I don't know. I know that they're optional sometimes, but I think it's like more of like, if you really want to spend that extra time, sure. But I've learned from other mentors and stuff that, you know, your work will speak for itself. If you want if anything, maybe write a message to a recruiter or a recruiting manager instead. Another thing is to read every single design book. I think I get intimidated whenever people talk about like designers or like authors of books, and I'm just like, oh yeah, totally know that book, but I've never read it. And I think I get really intimidated by that because I feel like I'm constantly having to catch up with knowledge. It's okay. You're going to be fine if you haven't read any or all of the design books that are out there. Of course, it's going to be great to have that in your back pocket and have that knowledge, but don't put pressure on yourself to like learn 500,000 new things about UX and then also have to read a book. Use it instead as a tool for you to learn all those 500,000 things. Again, knowing everything. You don't need to know everything because everybody is learning. And also something that I learned very recently is that you shouldn't put the pressure on yourself to like measure your productivity as your worth. I was constantly thinking to myself, if I didn't push out a case study today, if I didn't push out X many applications today, that I was not as good as I was yesterday. And I think that's something that I had to really unlearn in my brain, that my productivity does not measure my worth. And that's something that I feel like I just wanted to share with you all, because it is definitely like this process takes a toll and can take a toll on your mental health if you're really hard on yourself. And I just want to let you all know that like, I went through that shit. You're going to be fine. If I went through it, you're going to be able to go through it. The final thing is you shouldn't have to burn out in order to feel like you are succeeding. I think that something with this industry in particular is like people who work 24/7, who are like pushing out all these LinkedIn posts all the time, who are like just pushing out content. They're praised, but then it puts pressure on people who aren't pushing out as much content or aren't, let's say, not as comfortable putting themselves in front of the camera. Like, I feel like you need to know that like your worth again should not equal your productivity, and you should be able to check in with yourself and with your support system, with your allies, as to how you're doing, because your mental health and your physical health is going to affect the actual quality of work that you produce. And so just be mindful of that. Burning out is not a trend. Burning out is not cool. It's bad for your health. So don't do that to yourself. Okay, the final thing that I'm going to go through is experience takeaways. And these are just like short little nuggets of wisdom that I got from my work. The first thing, I always talk about how you don't need to know anything, but also being clueless was an asset for me. I was in a space where there were people that were like 5 to 10 years older than me. And I was like this newbie. I felt like a noob, especially like specifically in the team that I was in at Facebook. And I felt like that gave me the power to ask questions. I had the superpower of not knowing anything, because that actually helped ask questions that were really insightful and ask questions that, you know, like reminded or reviewed different knowledge or things about the product with my teammates. Asking questions will help other people, whether you know it or not. So don't be afraid to ask them. The second is over communication is key to visibility. So whenever you're working with somebody, with your manager, it doesn't matter how small or how big the job is. When you communicate what you're going through, what you're learning, what you're producing, that is how you're going to get noticed. And I feel like that's really important for us, because just doing the work is not enough. You need to be able to showcase and present that as a good designer. And also with my internship, I was really scared, because the big question after internships is like, will I get a return offer? Like, what if I don't get a return offer? I'm going to die if I don't get a return offer. And something that I learned from, especially with my internship at Facebook, was like, as long as you yourself were proud of the work that you did in that internship, in that job opportunity, that is the best thing that you can do for yourself. Period. because I feel like people will define their experience as to whether or not they got, the full-time offer or not. But in reality, when I've spoken to people who didn't even get the return offer from Facebook because of COVID and anything, they basically were like, you know what, if I were to go into that internship again, knowing that I won't get a full-time offer, I'd still do it. So just being able to learn and get the most out of your internship is key. It's not all about the return offer. Finally, the thing that I want to just like instill in you all is just these takeaways that I feel like happen also in like class in my design career in general. Like, I think that one of the things that I've had to learn the most is just being able to not take critiques personally. That's something that I feel like every designer needs to like be able to learn how to do, but that's even more so with UX design. I think that it's really important that it doesn't barge your ego. Make sure that your work. I remember my mentor Dan Mall said, when you present things, you should be able to look at your work as something that's disposable when you're designing, because you need to not be that attached to your work in order to be able to have this mindset of constantly improving it and making sure that you're doing this because it's going to be successful, not because it's like your baby. Next is kindness and understanding. It's important. I have heard lots of stories of people who like have their ego and wear their ego on their shoulders, and things don't work out when you are trying to just be a mean person. So don't be mean, be understanding, be respectful to other people. I know that it seems weird that I have to say this out loud, but I feel like a lot of the time people will take advantage of other people when in terms of like having a portfolio review. It's just like, I'm only using you for a portfolio review. Remember that, whoever you're reaching out to are people too. So please be respectful of the people that you're connecting with, and also just treat them as you want to be treated. And finally, I promise this is my final point. It's not all about the job. It's funny that I say that in this particular presentation that's all about finding a job, but I think that it's really important to remember, especially with this like constant like workaholic almost culture with UX design, is that it's important to know your value outside of work as well. Personally, like this entire like summer internship application process made me burn out. And I'm going to therapy and it's all fine and dandy, but I think that it took a lot of understanding of what my values were outside of work in order to remember like why I was doing UX in the first place. So make sure to check in on yourself, check in on your friends. I know that it can be a really stressful time, especially with midterms, but make sure that you have other things that you value outside of your job, because really at the end of the day, the job is only a part of your life and it's not your whole life. All right, time for Q&A. Oh, before I forget, add me on everything. I want to be your friend. This QR code should lead to my link tree, so you can add me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. You can find my YouTube videos. You can find my like affiliate links if you want discounts to stuff. But yeah, I would love to connect with you all and feel free to message me. Don't feel like I'm some kind of stranger. DM me on Instagram. That's how Devin got me to talk with you all. So yeah, thank you so much.